to the rest of the news. U.S. Navy sailors on board the USS Ronald Reagan were some of the first Americans to respond to the tsunami and nuclear disaster in Fukushima, Japan in 2011. Now they're suing TEPCO, the company in charge of the stricken Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. At least 71 sailors on the USS Ronald Reagan have reported radiation sickness, and they're suing TEPCO, alleging that the company knowingly downplayed the dangers of nuclear radiation at that Fukushima site. Of those 71 sailors, at least half now have some form of cancer, according to the lawyer representing them. And other sailors are dealing with thyroid and reproductive health problems. So did TEPCO knowingly mislead the world about the radioactive dangers at Fukushima immediately following the devastating tsunami? And could this lawsuit be the first of many to come? Joining me now for more on this is Kevin Camps, radioactive waste watchdog at Beyond Nuclear. Kevin, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom.
It's always nice to see you.
Thank you.
So what's the story? I think I've seen absolutely no coverage of this in any American media. So first of all, is it actually real that the soldiers aboard the USS Ronald Reagan off the coast of Japan when Fukushima melted down were exposed to high levels of radiation?
Well, it's a shocking story, and I first learned of it last March 11th, which was the second anniversary of the Fukushima catastrophe beginning in 2011.
So they had kept this buried for 2 years?
Two of the sailors came to a big gathering in New York City to mark the anniversary, and they were suffering health effects from their service on board the Reagan. Turns out that the Reagan was anchored just a mile or two off of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant during the worst of the radioactivity releases,
right,
which was news to me. I mean, I follow this as closely as I can. 2 years into this thing, I find out that the Reagan was that close to these catastrophic radioactivity releases. So the crew on board that ship, 5,000 plus sailors, were in harm's way for several long days on end. Not warned by TEPCO, not warned by the Japanese government, not warned by the United States government, which had radiation detecting planes flying all over northeastern Japan. So,
well, you would think that an aircraft carrier in this day of dirty bombs and you know that they would have radiation detectors on the ship.
Well, some of the first news that was really disturbing in the first days of Fukushima Daiichi was that the aircraft carrier detected radioactivity on the helicopters coming back, landing on board the flight deck. And so one of the sailors who's now stepped forward in a big way was servicing those helicopters. Another of these sailors that I met in New York, his name is Maurice Ennis. He set off the radiation monitors below deck when he came down from being on the flight deck. So there were lots of indications that there was something seriously wrong, but they stayed in this contamination plume for days on end. So they were getting the radioactive gases, which they were breathing in. They were getting the fallout onto them, so they're being exposed that way. What I didn't realize until this latest news about the relaunch of this lawsuit against Tokyo Electric, even the water that the sailors were drinking was from their desalination system. So they were getting the seawater that was contaminated with radioactivity. It was being desalinated by the ship, and they were drinking it. They were cooking with it. They were showering with it. Wow. But those desalination processes don't take out the radioactivity.
Right, because salt is a fairly large molecule. It's sodium and chloride, and if you've got just an individual atom as opposed to a molecule or a particle, the desalination is not going to take it out. Right?
You need special filters. You can't get tritium out of water, period. Not at industrial scale.
It's smaller.
It is water.
It's helium.
Yeah, it's hydrogen. It's radioactive hydrogen. Yeah. You need special filtering to get out the cesium, to get out the strontium. None of that was taking place. So that ingestion pathway combined with all the others could account for some of these health effects we're seeing.
So what's the, has the government stepped up and done anything? Are they testing the 5,000 soldiers, or is it just these 71 who are sick who are suing? I mean, what's the deal?
Well, the common story I keep hearing from these sailors who are, stepping up and speaking out is they don't even have health care. I'm not sure what's going on, but they're kind of on their own resources. Most have had to leave the service because of debilitating health conditions. So they seem to be in, desperate straits. They're looking for, some funding to help them get the health care that they need.
Senator Sanders is the chairman of the Veterans Committee. You should bring that to his attention. I'll try to do so tomorrow. He's going to be on our show. We just have 90 seconds here. I'm wondering what's the, we've heard that reactor 3 has got steam coming out of it. We were reporting today on our radio show that it's not, it doesn't seem to be an immediate crisis. What is going on?
Well, I think Arnie Gunderson at Fairwinds has explained it well. It's the weather conditions that make the steam visible, but what people need to realize is that we're almost 3 years into this thing. Those releases are happening every day. Those releases atmospherically...
It's just that when it gets cold enough, you see it.
You see the condensation, but those releases into the ocean are happening every day. They have been for 3 years. So that is the massive radioactivity release that's going on. Once in a while, it becomes more visible because of atmospheric conditions that you would see, you see your breath when it's cold outside.
Right.
So we're seeing this heated water coming out of Unit 3. It's just the tip of the iceberg.
And Unit 4, the one that was listing that had all the rods up at the top, that they were going to start taking those rods out, pulling the cigarettes out of the broken, crushed pack.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Very little reporting, which is kind of scary, actually. So one would assume that without the reporting that it must be going smoothly, but I'm not sure that that's the case.
Maybe it's not going at all?
We don't know. We hear very little about what's going on.
And the stories about the Japanese mafia hiring homeless guys to clean this site up, is that true?
You know what's incredible? Yeah, it is true, is this new State Secrets Act is making things even worse. Where it was difficult for reporters to get in and cover this stuff in the first place, now it's against the law.
This is a Japanese State Secrets Act.
That's right.
That's amazing. Kevin Camps, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Tom.
Good to see you.
Workers are about to begin preparing to drain underground tunnels at the disabled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. This comes before the start of a project to freeze the earth around the openings of the tunnels to block the flow of contaminated water. The tunnels are believed to be one of the sources of radioactive materials that are polluting the groundwater at the facility on a large scale. Workers at Tokyo Electric Power Company plan to block the flow of tainted water between the damaged buildings and the tunnels. The workers will start burying pipes in the ground to carry refrigerants later this month. They plan to start draining the contaminated water from the tunnels in April after the freezing work is completed. TEPCO will also begin testing a plan to freeze soil over a large area. The eventual goal is to surround the reactor buildings and other facilities with walls of ice to prevent fresh groundwater from seeping in beneath the facilities. A large amount of highly radioactive water has accumulated beneath the plant. TEPCO officials will also set up radiation monitoring equipment at various hot spots on the floors of reactor buildings. The readings will be used to support the decontamination work by robots that will follow. Officials say they will also study how to remotely locate and repair holes in the reactor containment vessels. The vessels were broken in a nuclear accident.
Farmers across Japan will soon be joining forces to boost their sales overseas. Trade experts are getting ready to help them market their produce together under a national brand. Officials with the Japan External Trade Organization say foods promoted as regional specialties don't have a strong identity abroad. They say producers in different regions should brand their offerings as Japanese and join hands to promote them. For instance, they want to see cooperation between scallop farmers in the northern prefectures of Aomori and Hokkaido. They plan to help producers operate booths together at food fairs.
Pushing the All Japan brand is the best way to help consumers abroad appreciate what producers have to offer.
Japanese government leaders aim to more than double annual exports of agricultural and marine products by 2020. Launched an investigation on Saturday at a factory of the subsidiary of one of the largest manufacturers of frozen food in Japan for alleged poisoning of its products. Last month, health authorities in Gunma Prefecture near Tokyo found that 7 kinds of meal packs produced by Acli Foods, a subsidiary of Maruha Nichiro Holdings, contained a pesticide called malathion. Maruha Nichiro Holdings has recalled 94 products, including pizza and croquettes. These contained as much as 1.5 million times the allowed limit of the pesticide. Health authorities say it is unlikely that the pesticide was added in the ordinary production process, as it's not used in the factory. Police allege that someone could have intentionally added the poison. They started an on-site investigation at the factory in Gunma Prefecture on Saturday. Police will check details of production flows and question officials and workers. Officials at Acli Foods say the poisoned products were packed in the same room and kept in cold storage in the factory after they were cooked on 3 separate lines. Acli Foods officials say they've also started interviewing the factory's 300 workers to find any irregularity. Expectations are increasing that Japan will play a leading role in the push for nuclear disarmament. Government officials recently made the historic decision to commit Japan to a United Nations statement that opposes the use of nuclear weapons under any circumstances. The UN statement came amid arguments between countries that want a treaty banning atomic weapons and those favoring a more gradual approach that allows for nuclear deterrence. Previously, Japanese government officials had said this no-use policy was incompatible with the country's reliance on the U.S. nuclear umbrella. But an observer on nuclear disarmament notes the country should take the lead on the issue.
Japan, the only country to have suffered atomic bombings, has a crucial role in global nuclear disarmament.
Japan plans to host an international conference in April to discuss nuclear disarmament. The meeting of foreign ministers from countries that do not possess nuclear arms will take place in Hiroshima, the site of a nuclear attack in World War II.
We need to get subscribed and get this unity stronger and beat YouTube at their own game. Okay, that's what this is about. Like I say, go to the remix button, hit the remix button. That way you'll have this video and keep up with this. Otherwise, YouTube's just going to control us, guys, and it's really bad.